live stream. I gotta use the restroom really quick if that's cool with y'all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, thank you.
Hello again.
Hi. How y'all doing?
We're pretty tired right now, to be honest. It's like 8 p.m. by us, so definitely a long day, but you know, we're hanging in there. So how y'all doing?
Good. You could just concede. We can end the round right now.
No, that's not fun.
Same to you, my guys.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not 8 o'clock here. We're trying to go to bed. You said you were tired. It's
Yeah. I mean, I'll always take a concession to be able to move on to the next round, though.
All right, so it looks like we've got everyone here, right? All three judges and every competitor.
Yep.
In that case, congratulations to everyone to making it this far. Round of applause. I know no one's watching. So, yeah, whenever you guys are ready, we've got Berkeley on Aff, right?
As far as I'm aware. Is everyone ready? Can y'all hear me? Oh, wait.
Yep, you're good.
Oh,
I think Corso's asking for a minute. Are you good?
okay. Is everyone else ready? Cody, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Plain text. The United States federal government should halt all military aid to Azerbaijan. It's just these sort of resolutions. Solvency. 1. The main way in which military aid gets to Azerbaijan is sort of the equipment and training given by the U.S. Troops. Absent this, they would not be able to enact the sort of violence that they have overall. 2. We will preempt your you're sort of filling in arguments. 1 is going to be nobody wants you to support Azerbaijan right now in the status quo. 2 is going to be the training would lead to interoperability. Just as they do not work with other sort of U.S. arms or equipment, which means you need a lot of time and sort of international pressure if other countries put in. 3 is going to be still in the meantime, this sort of violence overall. 4 is going to be Azerbaijan wouldn't have these sort of funding in order to get more equipment and arms overall, which means they wouldn't be able to enact more violence. Because the advantage 1 is structural violence, A is uniqueness. 1 is the U.S. gives aid to Azerbaijan. This includes sort of boats that consider underwater surveillance, surveillance gear, guns, and sort of weaponry to help to keep the country secure its border. A is going to be the United States is key to upholding Azerbaijan. There are 3 warrants. 1, the U.S. has the sort of best technology in order to give them. That is the sort of idea. We have Ohio less submarines and 35 fighter jets. 2 is going to be the U.S. is the biggest contributor, around 60%, over 60% of all of their area. 3 is contemplated the warrants. No one else wants to go in, and Russia already supports Armenia. 2 is going to be Armenia and Azerbaijan announced as ceasefire 3 hours ago. That is the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict starting from midnight. But here's the problem with it. A move that just comes after a week after Russia broke a truce, immediately freed Russia as a security pact with Armenia, but favorable ties with Azerbaijan has hosted top diplomats from both countries that have 10 hours of talk that ended after initial ceasefire agreement. The deal they initially fray almost every time because the sort of support of U.S. presence in Azerbaijan in the status quo means the sort of potential fallout from Russia over USA and push these sort of border dispute between Azerbaijan and Armenia towards their own goals of eroding Russian advance and influence in Eastern Europe. 3 is Armenians are dying around now, which means we still have a risk of resolve. Look at the recent hundreds, according to Washington, hundreds of people are dying each day from these sort of killings by Azerbaijan that is happening in the status quo. Linked when the plan passes, then these losers, their main supplier of weapons this reduces their ability to enact violence in the status quo. Even if they have this sort of leftovers of the weapons, the supply will run out, and they show that they have no international aid. This forces them towards a legitimate peace talk extend treaty, because they can no longer now have mass international pressure can't uphold it. Is going to be the plan passes, increasing the sort of more pressure overall by the international community. Azerbaijan do not want to be the risk sort of sanctions overall, which means they will pull out of Armenia in the attacks overall and not risk of re-escalation later on. The impacts. What is going to be structural violence is going to be the sort of ethnic genocide of Armenians in Armenia. They kill millions of lives every year with this sort of invisibilized violence. Is going to be sort of leads to sort of crackdown within Azerbaijan that leads to the structural violence by the government when they don't use it in Armenia. This reduces their ability to enact violence within internally overall, which we result for that kills thousands each year. Advantage 2 is going to be hegemony. A is the uniqueness. 1 is going to be U.S. powers low right now. A is going to be the continued funding for Azerbaijan and the military aid. It's uniquely caused these sort of fracturing with Europe. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel already called out the U.S. military aid as the main contributor to the bottom. B is this creates a further fracture that Russia looks to facilitate that has caused the low soft power overall. 2 is going to be Azerbaijan is key to soft power. Across the way, we went the sort of European allies have called against these sort of usage. Germany with calling for a ceasefire. B is sort of signals a sort of humanitarian aid as a flashpoint region in Central Europe, which means it's key to the sort of hegemony in European at large. Also, it leads to a sort of signal of destroys U.S. ability to enact, try and want to go for humanitarian aid. 3 is soft power is key to hedge. A is key to having our bases in places and freedom of truth. B is key to having coalitions against threat and prevent coalitions against the U.S. Look how we were able to gather allies to stop the Bosnian genocide in the 90s. It's key for people to determine our trade deals and treaties are valuable. Otherwise, nobody would deal with us. It's the internally to having the need for hard power. Without soft power, hard power fails. Force me. Low soft power causes Russian adventures in the Baltic. Russia's been looking to expand in the Baltic regions like Anatolia and Latvia so they can access the increased royal reserve and trade ports along the Black and Caspian seas compared to their summer-only point in Kaliningrad. That's why they invaded Crimea in the first place. They've already started drill 3 hours in the go in the Caspian Sea, which means it's going to happen really soon. B is going to be only expending what they believe the soft power to believe low, and they're doing the U.S. soft power is low right now. That is why the post-Crimean expansion happened after the sort of federal government shut down in 2013 in the Trayvon George Zimmerman acquittal with regards to Trayvon Martin links. 1 is the plan base is increasing in soft power, which turns back Russian adventure. A is going to be a strong chef that pushes back Russia. They only sort of posture when they believe U.S. soft power to be low. They don't want to risk an inter-European U.S. alliance, which means they pull back. Overall, B is going to shows tighter relations with allies. Germany is a key NATO ally in the region. It breaks down these sort of perceptual sort of a habit of the fracturing that means Russia does not want to risk escalation, even if they don't actually increase relations. It looks like they do. C is going to forces Russia to turn inwards, resolving its own domestic health crisis, increasing sort of democratic norms because they believe hegemony is a losing game to it. Plan is solving soft power at large, which increases it reduces the sort of ability, increases our humanitarian anti go towards humanitarian aid, and we no longer look for Russia. B is perception is whether or not we do or not. It looks like we're doing what the international community and EU impacts. 1 is going to be a Baltic War. A is Russian veterans, according to Rand Corporation, simulation will kill millions in this walkie gap, even if it doesn't go nuclear. B is going to be eventually go nuclear. Article 5 would be triggered as Russia and the U.S. both have offensive first strike policies. You won't believe the U.S. will attack that causes extinction, blocks out the sun to his hedge. It solves every other bag empirically proven when the longest period of since the Pax Romana. B is going to be a great power war, nuclear with multiple potential hegemons, and that fails to check back. C is pursuit of hegemony is inevitable. Ever presence is GR is pursuit. It's not a question whether hedge is good or bad. Roll the ballots to vote for the best post-field policy. Option 1 is going to be state example A is Rutgers shows by law to do preferred hierarchies like the state fees. The state crushes your move looks out across the PPP. Choose materialism first. A constrains action. The DRC had the ideological will to engage in revolution, but not material resources. They were crushed.
All right, Sonic Flex.
So is there an argument that says that if we don't do the AF that NATO will collapse? Or am I misunderstanding the impact argument?
I believe probably misunderstanding it. What are you talking about?
Okay, so there's an argument about like Germany is a key NATO ally. Is that an argument that says that NATO will collapse if we don't do the affirmative, or what?
No. It is an argument that sort of the fracturing in NATO coalitions like Germany and the US is what causes Russian adventurism. It's not whether or not NATO collapses, but whether or not Russia seizes as fractures that causes the expansion in the first place.
What particular soft power is low now in Advantage 2?
We have isolated that uniquely the soft power in Central and Europe, within Europe at large, because of our sort of our increased military aid towards Azerbaijan, which is causing a genocide. This has sort of fractured coalitions with NATO, but it also looks like we're monsters.
Fair enough. Thanks for the clarification.
The counter plan or no?
No, I do not want the counter plan. The order will be the criticism and then the
Okay.
So one off.
yes, and then
Cool,
case.
Okay.
Any particular order?
Oh wait, and the 2 off. Then give me the T shell.
It's on the file.
Or the resolution. How are you not topical?
That doesn't mean you're the topical. No, I'll tell you in my speech.
Okay.
Any particular order on the off? Sorry, just for.
There will be like a we can talk about the state inevitable thing first.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. Which one do you want me to read about, Rebecca?
First one.
Oh, I think the second one's better.
No, do the first one.
Okay, we'll read the first one. All right, so 2 off and then case.
Cool.
All right.
I've had an executive order run against me.
Okay.
All right. Anyone not ready? Okay. First is topicality. Halt the interpretation of suspension of movement, which means they have to condition the stopping of the aid. Next, we say that they permanently stop the aid without conditions. Next is the standard. The meaning dictionary definition means that the only access to the way that we interpret the round is based off dictionary definitions, because the only way that both teams have access to this in prep, which means is they internally to ground and clash. Next, we say ground we lose access to neolib bad, because the idea that we can complete countries to do stuff based on our aid. The voters under this topicality comes first, because you have to evaluate the rules of the game before you can play it. Next, we say you evaluate topicality through competing interpretations, because reasonability is bad and causes judge intervention, which because you have to have a definition of what reasonability is. Next, we say marks. Framework is one, epistemology comes first because knowledge of production structure is how we view the world in relation to ourselves and determines how we take actions, and the policy failure is inevitable absent investigation, instruction, knowledge, underground when they see totalizing theory is good. Neoliberal capitalism tries to individualize specific event to undermine the development of class consciousness. Totalizing theory is the only way to construct a complete understanding of the overarching influence of capitalism and social affairs. Next is the state focus is bad. The capitalists locate this political section within the debate within the state to constrain the revolution and potential. The state is fundamentally under capitalist control, which places a hard cap on what is possible through the state action. Next, we say the state is fundamentally incapable of undermining capitalist rulers because the rich will not eat themselves. Next is the links. One is the asked defensive governmental action functions to legitimize the established order. Their performance if assumes that we have some sort of power in the government. This fact is no democracy can be in a society and if built upon class exploitation. Their policymaking is thus a bourgeoisie strategy to naturalize the structural capitalist violence, delegitimizing the opposition from the outside of the political arena. Two is reformism. The bourgeoisie strategy solutions obscure the role of capitalism as structuring the social relations. The violence they solve is in singular event, but rather the inevitable consequences of a social order around the extraction of profits from the proletariat. This turns the case because it guarantees serial policy failures. Two, or third is the rise of militarism in the United States. The capitalist power structures that go in hand in hand. Liberalism often ignores the portion of Eisenhower's famous speech where he declared the development of the U.S. military-industrial complex was imperative. The needs of the United States in national battle against socialism. The United States now is more than on their military than the next 26 countries combined. This uniqueness for length of term by the out there. Our argument is that that the United States is increasing their military guarantees. That Azerbaijan only necessitates that those military resources be used elsewhere. That's where the sunk costs don't apply. The power of the projection and the militarism, both the first defense against socialism, the most powerful tool against capitalism. The affirmative simply reappropriates the tool elsewhere. Otherwise, guys, of a good deed. A little A into this is that it's a key example of how vanguardism functions because the affirmative utilizes the academic space to obfuscate the capitalist role in global politics and denies the function of the military-industrial complex, maintaining the capitalist ideology abroad and increasing the security guarantees alone. It doesn't solve it. It simply morphs the current state of the geopolitics slightly, but the capitalist machine continues to operate. Next to the impacts. One is capitalism makes extinction inevitable. Economists say that 2-3% growth is mandatory for capitalism to remain viable, which guarantees in the matter of decades destroy the earth, destroying all natural resources until climate change finishes the job. Two is the either capitalism results in extinction or collapses. If capitalism collapses, communism fashions reactionary right-wing movements building power around the world, from the Republican Party in the U.S. to numerous neo-Nazi parties in significant way in Europe. This is tried to build a strong communist movement to supplant the capitalism more fascist to take control, to engage in heinous violence against the marginalized groups. Next, the alternative. Vote negative to endorse a strategy of building dual power. Vote negative to endorse a strategy of building dual power. We'll give you a text before flex. One is dual power is a strategy coined by Lenin and Bolsheviks, established by the Soviets or workers' councils. It exists alongside the provincial government. It supplements the basic functions of governance, such as running the railways and telegraph services. Culminated in nearly a bloodless transfer of power during the October Revolution, whereas the provincial government simply ceded power because the Soviets had captured both popular support and means of the imperial resistance. Two is our model is vanguardism strategy, in which the class conscious sections of the proletariat form organizations in order to draw larger sections of the working class towards revolution. Politics, made into the academy, or key sites at which vanguardism can operate, because students are among the most easily radicalized because they generally have not accumulated enough wealth to their class interests to be aligned with the bourgeoisie. Three is the alternative solves the F and no permutations, because the goal of dual power is building governance structures outside the state and controlled by the proletariat. Once we supplant the state, we will implement better policies unwarped by bourgeoisie's interests, but combining all the alternative and state action merely reifies the state legitimacy and undermining the solvency. Next, the answer to state inevitable on the case. You have missed the boat on this. We agree the states are inevitable. The current United States are not inevitable. We say that every empire throughout history has fallen in time, and the U.S. is on the road to social collapse. The question is not whether the kind of state will supplant the United States federal government. We construct a dictatorship of the proletariat through the building of dual power, facilitates transition to a communist state. This no longer serves the bourgeoisie interest. It's tried out for communism elsewhere, or else the U.S. will collapse into fascism via the Republican Party. At the top level of the AF, you could say the AF doesn't solve anything. One, because Russia will fill in. They're wrong about no one wants a part of this. The amount of money is like pennies, so Russia will certainly make it up. And secondly, they are already giving money to Azerbaijan and the status quo. They have missed this point in the uniqueness scenario. They're wrong about how people want to do this. It's always going to be about a perception of whether Russia can fill in or not. The second is the U.S. aid to Azerbaijan is symbolic, because the notion of $101 million is useful and fundamentally wrong. The next argument is the perception of the U.S. is funding Azerbaijan is to stop Russian adventurism. Three is the U.S. cut funding will not only do anything to operationally change the Azerbaijan relationships with the U.S. and Russia, but it will end up in the perception that the U.S. is helping Azerbaijan to help back Russia. Four is that's bad because it's seen as the U.S. backing off into Turkey and Syria, now Azerbaijan, which encourages Russian adventurism into Poland. This five triggers NATO, because once Russia moves more into Poland, it means that NATO has to be able to fight back against us, since they're a key ally. This will always trigger a massive war, because if Russian adventurism moves towards NATO, what?
Signpost.
This is just a top level DF. We say it triggers a NATO pull-in because this isn't necessarily problematic because they know there will be a dead conventional war against the United States. This will cause millions of missiles deaths. The 13,000 people were displaced in the Ukraine when they invaded there. It means that millions more would be displaced and killed as an effect of the war because NATO. Next, another top level argument. There's no effect on the war of Armenia because this tiny percentage of Azerbaijan military money. Two is it's certainly not going to be able to fill. It's certainly going to be filled in by Russian. Three is the Azerbaijan is not need U.S. money to fight Armenia. That's state three. Next is it turns and emboldens Azerbaijan because they don't have enough have to hold back at all. They just do whatever they want. There's necessarily problematic because they still have the weapons to be able to do this. They say the weapons will run out eventually, but this is not necessarily going to be able to stop them because we say that Russia will fill inevitably. We will win that uniqueness claim. Secondly, third argument we say that this means killing more means killing Armenians, especially since Russia doesn't actually give a fuck about what kind of weapons you use. They will give bioweapons to Azerbaijan to be able to do this thing. If U.S. pulls out to show the symbolic connection between Russia and Azerbaijan, meaning that there will be even worse kinds of wars in the Middle East as a result of the plan. You can cross-apply especially the argument about Russia filling on the advantage one, which means and the argument I made about the last argument about how these wars will get worse on an advantage one, it means that there's no actual solvency for the genocide in Azerbaijan. Next on the second is how they say the soft power is low in the status quo. This is not necessarily true. The massive amount of money that we give to NATO to be able to protect our allies is always going to be locking our soft power as long as NATO is a holding point. We give 72% of all the money that's given to NATO in defense spending, which means that we're always going to be key to the EU protection against Russian adventurers. We say that NATO is always going to be key to hold back Russian adventurism in this case because of the argument I said below earlier that as long as NATO is able to hold us back, we will always be able to stop the war scenarios coming out of NATO, which means that the war scenario coming out of the advantage was never going to happen in the first place, and that the United States is always going to be problematic to doing this. They necessarily can't do anything to solve back for advantage two, and secondly, that it probably even risk doing this even more because it's not able to supplant the type of problematic things that Russia will do inside of Armenia, which means that the war will happen in Armenia, and these things will get worse. You can cross by the arguments said on advantage one here.
Can we get the roll the ballot as well as the alt text?
We don't use a roll the ballot.
Okay, can we get the alt then?
Yeah. The alternative is to vote negative. That's it. I'm kidding. You put it in there? Is that what you said?
Any interp as well, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I got the alt.
Oh, you've got, I've already posted the alt, I think.
Okay.
If it's not in all caps, then it's not good. But the interp is not in all caps, rip. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, starting 2 minutes.
Status the alt.
It's unconditional.
Okay. What's the topical version of the affirmative under your intern?
You have to give back the aid if Azerbaijan needs.
We didn't read frame. Wait. In terms of the. Yeah, cool. We say you have to condition removing the aid.
Where does it say condition?
We say that the definition of the word halt is. That's how we interpret the resolution through dictionary definitions. It's the standard work we do.
Thank you. So you're saying fiat is bad? I didn't catch. Did you have a fiat bad point?
Yeah, the first link point is about how fiat is the bourgeoisie strategy of keeping the established order. So it's inherently saying the fiat is bad.
Okay.
The order is going to be a new sheet on top. Then it'll be T. Then it'll be the F in the order of the roll the ballot. Solvency. Like that's where I kind of flowed like the sort of dump arguments. I'm not sure where you flowed that. Wherever you flowed that like sort of dump, that's where I'll be going basically. Add one, add two. Then it'll be the criticism in the order of alt, framing, links, impacts.
Did you say after like the T and the new off, is it the framework stuff on the app?
Yeah, so it's going to be new sheet, T, the framing claim of the app, the roll the ballot of the app, the solvency dump, add one, add two, the criticism in the order of alt, framing, links, impacts.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
And then if I am unclear or I am maybe just too fast or anything, just let me know auditorily so that way I can hear you. Otherwise, I probably won't catch you. For sure. Anyone not ready? Cool. Interpretation if the affirmative defense of post-fiat policy option or negative absence must be committed post-fiat policy option violation one day index fiat so they don't engage. Second is going to be they are policy option they are orientation not government legislation which they indict in the first place. And one's going to be limited or if an amount of alternatives they could read massive the affirmative research branch they can predict all the extents they could read smooth private and prevent engagement because we turn to K tick it's going to be granted they can share back up
Clear.
by the topic also justifies the utopian all that fiat's mindsets which are impossible to answer because they don't defend implementation 3 depth of education strain indeed discussion of policy option allows for better specificity and clash one of the prevents research or debates around stable locus appointed discussion regarding advocacy skills and turning K for it's going to be really caged and defend a policy alternative which solves all of your offense voters one a priority need in order to play game seconds to be fair and say these backs arguments are fair means they are unable to who's the better play because they want to advance private needs to protect them because the MPs are SQB legitimate certain K if you're fair people will take a chance it means you won't enact your alternative which means it kills real world solvency it's going to be debate collapses it with debates on fair people which leads to opposite activity kills negative solvency because no one ever preserves knowledge production the negative thing is going to be education sex max activity rather debate collapses for it's going to be interpretation of reasonability because reasonability actually we're not going to yeah but reasonability at least erase the offense is going to be dropped the barrier keep future abuse drop an argument link back at our sense level office it's going to be no RS shows theory but something's going to be MG3 for LC theory angle in this fashion negative has double the time to make the affirmative we'll swap out any answers to the golden expansion when it's going to be arguments such as LC theory we're clear we're skewed to be LC to be so which means our prerequisites our interpretation is a prerequisite to evaluate their interpretation T is going to be MG it's a higher speech so a split T multiple layers go to the interpretation on T proper. The first time is going to be we defend normal means defend the entirety resolution probably means that we probably reasonably be all the entirety of your interpretation probably means that we just defend rights and whatever and topic literature probably check out against any of your abuse in the first place. Second is going to be that we will specify that condition that will defend the conditions of the they will collapse or means that we function your interpretation. The third arm is going to be me yeah that's fine. The counter interpretation is going to be that what's the counter interp Josh? To hold the bring comes in an abrupt stop according to the Oxford Dictionary. The understands one's going to be extra topicality and limiting elements going to be under here is going to be that specifying these sort of conditions that makes exact topicality because we derive external offense to be the weighty conditions that are specified in the resolution, which means that there's a different amount of the conditions we could have specified, which means that your interpretation is going to be bad for ground. Second is going to be predictability. We were literally in topic literature and defend the resolution means we're the most predictable counter interpretation theory is going to be that we utilize Oxford Dictionary, which has been tested by multiple dictionary experts, which probably means that we have the strongest historical link to education. Go to the only side how they say ground the one arm is going to be used to turn this argument, but second is going to be that these sort of arguments are not unique in a world where you just expect everything that just means that yeah. Anything else you want, Josh? Okay, cool. Go to the end. Go to the roll of the ballot. The only argument they have here is that they is not responsible. The first time is going to be you can see the way in which biological hierarchies are inevitable. The warrant that gave an interview that any sort of demarcations and hierarchies and sort of inevitable, which means you wouldn't be able to solve any of your offense in the first place. But extend across to the argument about how the state crushes your movement via the way that you're sort of a government of bosses, which crushes Black Panther movement. They might try to go for this argument that they state doesn't crush your movement. That just means that they specifically people of color like the Black Panther movement just ends up getting squashed, which means that the alternative just actively exclude people of color, which is probably an independent voting issue. But this is extend across the second materialism comes first. So you say that material proceeds of epistemology because it's eternally the why we care about epistemology in the first place because it means it begs the question of how we keep And then we have access to epistemology in the first place, which probably means that materialism is a prerequisite to the entirety of criticism. Plus, they have not read reasons why we can't weigh the affirmative against the criticism, which means it will massively outweigh on the impact calculus alone. We go to the solvency that goes to the first argument. They say the film argument to armor, so you can see the warrant way Russian sports idea right now. Go check this argument, but the armor is going to be that you still can see the entirety of the head advantage probably means that Russia stops the supporting places. Azerbaijan, if like their claim is true, then Russia stops supporting them, which means that because of hedge, which they have conceded a link story for. Goes to the second about perception of the war armor is going to be conceded away with that. The United States not being involved decreases the perception that they are busy and being called by the European Union, which probably towards the entirety of the Russian sort of extension. So that's the thesis of the entire solvency dump, which means that we're able to solve the second army is going to be that you have also conceded a way which the United States is uniquely key for supply, specifically the way in which they provide the most updated technology in a way that they're the main supply in the first place. Probably means that only at the United States probably means that we are able to solve for the entirety of advantage. Cool, goes to advantage one. It's going to cost the entirety of advantage. They've conceded the unique triad, specifically the United States is key, which means the triad to be able to resolve this will massively outweigh on time frame, but we'll do that analysis later. But it's going to cost how many are currently dying right now, and that we're currently in a break scenario, but on the ceasefire, it's means that it's a triad to be able to resolve sort of defiance in the first place. Go to the link level. Their only argument is that we don't solve, but that's a contingent upon whether or not they're winning the solvency block, but they're not going to cost the link. By following that, we're able to we're literally decreasing the amount of weapons that they have. The second argument about how we increase more pressure, which means that even if we don't win that supply claim, that means that they have more pressure and eventually will cave in. But that was conceded out of the LOC, extended across the impact of structural violence. That we are able to save millions of Armenians by doing the affirmative, which massively outweighs the criticism. Go to advantage two. Their only argument against here is we're currently funding NATO. That so there's like not responsive. The first argument is going to be that you have conceded the way in which Armenia, specifically the army, is going to be you have conceded the way in which European allies have called out the United States over and over again for not supporting Armenia, but rather supporting the authoritarian government. Probably means that it's trying to be able to resolve a hegemony extended across the first argument that soft power is low now, and the second argument that Armenia is uniquely extended across the argument that soft power is key to hedges. A damning argument they conceded because they key to the basis and coalition ability to be able to push back against Russia. The first place should be tried for the affirmative extended across the first argument that absent soft power that just leads to Russian expansion. They conceded that, which means if we solve soft power, we solve for Russian expansion. Across the link, they conceded the way in which we are literally pushing back Russia, be the way that we are sort of decreasing our way, whether or not we're busy, which essentially pushes them back. You have conceded that argument. We don't need to win sort of material, but if it's rather just a perception extend across the second link about how we solve hedge at large, even if we don't solve Russian adventures, and we solve great power wars that happen as a result of decreasing hegemony extend across the entirety and impact scenario. They conceded argument, which means that the Baltic War it kills millions of people and eventually goes nuclear when we solve that, which means we solve for extinction, which means that we massively outweigh the criticism because we extinction determines whether we can engage in things like capitalism in the first place, but extend across the second argument about how it solves power wars and humanitarian, which probably means that we're key to being able to talk about things like capitalism in the first place, which means we outsequence them. Cool. Go to the alternative. The first time is going to be perm do both, term do both. The arm is going to be there and on either. The alternative is able to overcome the disruption in the affirmative war. It means that it was doomed to fail in the first place. The arm is going to be at your alternative is literally duo power. The permutation is literally a form of duo power. This arm is going to be seventh permutation. Perm duty, all do that benefits. We're going to be assumption believe no one's consent on the removal. That means that no one is able to preserve the knowledge production of the negative in your revolution is doomed to fail in the first place. But go to the solves the affirmative. The arm is going to be you are not able to solve the affirmative at the very least. You sort of lead to the left intersectional version of the alternative be the way that you can see the Black Panther war, which means even if the alternative is able to solve in some sort of way, just it's absent of black voices, which is independent voting, you should protect the priority for making a base space fine. Go to the framing claim. The first argument they say epistemology comes first, but the one argument is going to be epistemology suffering. You have not indicated reasons why capitalism and epistemology doesn't corrupt the way in which we come to understand capitalism in the first place because it sort of demarcates what's good in the first place, which means that it's infinitely regressive, which means we should only evaluate the material implications of the affirmative. But it goes to stay focused battle arm is going to be that. Stay focused is going to give emphasis on quality of argumentation rather than presentation, which is good for marginalized individuals. Otherwise, the exclusive is going to be that illegal. Stay focused is going to look at the way in which people of color have defend themselves by studying legal studies and protect themselves from ICE raids. But the cool. Go to the links. The first arguments, clip all these arguments together. We are just simply making demands on the stage. Just believe them. How DJ let me make demands on the stage without becoming the stage problems. We know linking the entirety of these arguments, but these arguments are going to be that these are all links I've mentioned that best because they just say the military aid will go elsewhere, but they don't articulate a reason how or why that happens in the first place. Which means that there's no link, which definitely justifies. What?
Wait, go to capitalism inevitably collapses communism and fascism. This isn't true. It's collapsed back to capitalism in the 40s in Neolib.
I go to the sort of argument that capitalism inevitably collapses. That's empirically false. Look at the way in 1940s there was a several economic collapses that capitalism just reoriented itself and brought back, which probably means that capitalism is inevitable. Go to the impacts of reverse causes. I mean, reverse causality arguments. Take a look at the way which black individuals are trying to find survival strategies via black businesses because they're trying to survive in a world of capital, which means that the alternative sort of just strips them of resources.
Stunning prep.
What? Oh.
Hey, can I get the interpretation on the new sheet?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I had an issue. Oh, can y'all hear me clear now?
Yep.
Rip.
Okay. So the order is gonna be actually it's gonna be T, RT, the new sheet, then the criticism, and then the app, starting with the framework stuff, and then going on to the case proper. So, sorry, I know that's a lot, but does anybody need me to repeat? Oh, there's gonna be an overview on the criticism too. So, does anybody need me to repeat any of that?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Cool, so you good? Mm-hmm. Cool, sweet. All right, let's go. On team, we said we're not going for no often. It was all the options something they put on there anyways. On the new sheet specifically, you can first of all, we say like we're probably like you don't define what a competitive post-VR policy option is in the first place, which means we can probably say that our criticism post-VR policy option anyways. But in addition, counter-interpretation, we say that the negative team may indict the affirmative in any competitive fashion. Again, the negative team may indict the affirmative in any competitive fashion. Reason why we need this, we indict the affirmative methodology and epistemology, which means we're competitive option to be able to discuss about. So specifically, you say that you screw limits and everything, just by fully alternative. You say that's fundamentally just not true. We say we do not like the any sort of like utopian solvency. We only say that class consciousness leads to like probably these impact scenarios and everything. That's good. Next, we say specificity. We see you can play specificity with a criticism versus activate anyways, because of the fact that we can have specific index about why capitalism fundamentally is the root cause for all the issues, which gives us plenty of independent education. Next, you say we have to defend the we say like we kill any sort of solvency. We say that's fundamentally just not true. We say we are able to supplement the state in the first place, which probably indication that means that we have access to solvency in the first place. When you see debate clubs, we say that's fundamentally not true. We say that reading criticisms are common in parliamentary debate. We say that's how many people reading criticism of parliamentary debate only meaning apply in the first place, which we say is bad. We say that critical education is fundamentally key for debate, and anyways because it allows people to actually get access to different forms. We say next, say reasonability job debated. Which means we say proof of reasonability. We say it's the only way to confirm, which means winning any sort of standards or winning why our interpretation is probably a better reason. We say MG theory is fundamentally bad, it's infinitely aggressive. We say massive skews out the LC strategy that's defended. And additionally, we also say that you shouldn't drop the team. You should just say if you fundamentally do that, just drop the argument. So yeah. Not impact any of these standards anyways. Overview on the criticism though, we see the criticism turns out ways the case they don't do enough work on the links or the impacts to be reason why they don't solve that specifically on the family. So you can see the epistemology comes first. They say that that's not a reason to be understand. Simply that's how requirements say that epistemology undergoes any sort of ideology, but in addition you can also say that totalizing theory is fundamentally the only way we can actually understand development of class consciousness and utilize totalizing theory to actually build in the first, which you don't respond to this articulation, but in addition you can also extend that all state focus fundamentally is bad because the state's never going to eat itself fundamentally. You can see the nuance of the articulation, which means you still legitimize the state word specifically, which means even if state focus is bad, you can see the fact that the state that type of state focus they talk about is inherently bad specifically, which means you don't have an articulation for why the state is inevitable or why the state is fundamentally good, which means you're always going to prefer the triad argumentations coming out of the criticism, but not one only something can extend. All I feel that those cold can see this is not a legal mission. We clearly see that the U.S. military force, the way the U.S. military operations sells the industrial conscious always cause the United States military, which is the reason why the violence is always going to be uniquely key to be able to resolve this type of scenario because of the because of the fact the military and the capitalist power always go hand in hand because of the fact that you always because of the fact that the United States spends a ton of money on it, which is why reason why Vanguard functions because of the fact that we can utilize the app to obfuscate the reason why we can use Vanguard to obfuscate how the app engages with the military specifically actually engage in a much better manner, which is why Vanguard is probably able to solve your impacts better specifically. But in addition, we also say you say also fundamentally say you don't link to this one argumentation. How you fundamentally do link because you still demand the government action. You're still in initiation reform, which fundamentally leads to a series of policy, which means you cannot solve any of your impacts scenarios, which probably indication why you don't also get permutation, because all of this links up this acts to the permutation in the first place. But it's just a reason why to listen to you is the only way we can actually be able to resolve for these things, because you stop class consciousness from building, which is the reason why the permutation doesn't link.
I can say that the alt-salty app and no permutations argumentation on the LSC.
Yeah, I'll get there. On the impacts, you can extend on first impact of capitalism always leads to extinction because of the fact that mandates 2 to 3% growth, which means that because of the fact that we constantly have to go salaries and resources that climate change is inevitably going to kill us as rules of capitalist for addition. You know, it's in the capitalism always goes to lead this class that's going to lead to fashion. You can see the warrants up here that specifically right when the actually movements are rising up in the status quo right now, which means that they're gaining power. Because the fact that you can see the cap is going to inevitably collapse, which means it's going to definitely class fascism. Whenever you can see that warrants which are always behind the question, which means that fascism is midnight, and it only makes both of your impact scenarios worse. Not only does it mean that you reach more structural violence as a result of it, because now we can actually utilize, because now fascists have power to do something in addition. It also means you massively go ahead hegemony on the persons, because it means that we're no longer able to actually have conscious trust, because we're acting in a fascist like manner, which we say is fundamentally by a reason why Germany doesn't trust us in the first place, which means you try and say that's not true, that like econ class led to capitalism. We say that's fundamentally just not true. We say that during the Great Depression that literally led to fascism rising up in Germany. You know, literally always behind on the warrants of that articulation, which means that capitalism is fundamentally going to class, it's going to lead to fascism. We don't have a reason about why now it's not going to class fascism in the first place, which means you always prefer that specificity that we talk about on the alternative. You think it's alternative.
The answer that capitalism is not like inevitably going to collapse.
They say also that root cause not the same thing as reverse cause. We say that you don't have an articulation about what we say that actually try to act for dual power to be able to so also, which means we are absolutely reverse causal, because we can actually utilize dual power with outside the state functions and outside the state size to be able to solve for both of those scenarios, which means dual power is the only way we can be able to solve for the scenarios, which means it's absolutely root causal, which means we actually have a reverse causal plan, because it means if we get rid of the capitalist state, we can actually implement dual power in the first place. That's our key sum to articulation. On the alternative, you can set the vote negative to new strategy of building dual power. You try to say make these permutations, but like split on what happened when you can see that I control it theory is the only way we can do this, which means if you include any sort of other articulation, you always have class consciousness, which is key to dual power being able to have the effect. But in addition, you also can see that vanguardism is the only way we can utilize the academic space to advance class consciousness. First person is what is already happening now, which means if we use the class space for anything other than that, you're always going to. It's only going to be bad, but in addition, we say that only during the alternative is able to actually understand change the base, and in fact the superstructure. We say that you are targeting the superstructure without changing the base, which means that all your impacts are inevitably going to re-entrench themselves in the first place. But in addition, you can see the fact that all alternative fundamentally just solves the entirety of the affirmative, especially whenever you can see the fact that vanguardism is fundamentally key to be able to change the way that we engage the military power specifically. It is key to be able to resolve structural violence. But in addition, you can also extend, But your permutation, your gas permutation, you always risk a link to the criticism, which means because of the fact that you can see multiple links in here means you always trigger out impacts now, which means you massively risk extinction with the permutation, not obviously why you prefer both it. But on the IPI permanent, we see that our tolerance theory includes all sorts of ideologies to focus on class. We see that looking at any other ideologies always leads to division of class consciousness and prevents it from able to grow. By focusing on capital specifically, we're able to be able to resolve those things. Anything else you want?
Yeah, you have to say that it will collapse because resources are finite.
Yeah, like capitalism is going to collapse. Like resources are finite. You can see this articulation, which means that probably means all of your worst scenarios are inevitably going to happen unless we do something now by building dual power, which means both the impact scenarios are inevitable and are going to be worse, especially in the world of fascism.
Yeah.
On the world of battle stuff, you can extend Khan's articulation about the fact that you massively missed the vote on here that that the USA is now that the USA is not inevitable. We conducted dictatorship to try to stop the US collapse. They try to say again, you cross by the IBR here that are making it, but in addition, you also say that's going to crush me when you say fundamentally not true. We say dual power does not provide a service for the state to be crushed, because if it does, it's going to get negative attention, which is only going to encourage people further to join all reactionary revolutionary movement in the first place, which means the state's not going to risk this, which initially means we probably don't actually really get this, especially whenever we question the material impacts of the world, especially if we do probably do a better job of that anyways, because we actually change space and not which really leads to change the superstructure. On the F, first we can extend on the fact that you massively involved both Russia and Azerbaijan. This goes cold conceded in the GM speech.
You need to answer the elites crusher movement.
Which
We've
one?
already proven that in the past that our movement has not been crushed by the elites.
Oh yeah, honestly, it's not literally. I've already answered this. Like that was the dual power stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah, you can extend the fact on here that you massively involved in you want to Azerbaijan and Russia specifically because the fact perceptually we say even if one NATO ally is happy, we say Russia's fundamentally going to be see it as US pulling out is fundamentally good for them, which means they're going to so.
The order will just be a new sheet. Is anyone not ready?
Nope, they did.
Hold on, Kyle. Let me mute
Oh,
myself.
well, Rebecca's not ready. What a
Sorry.
situation. Okay.
Can you all hear me?
I
Anybody
can
hear
now.
me?
Yeah.
Hey, I would just highly recommend when somebody yells clear on both sides, you have to understand the broadband is really, really bad, and it's really hard to hear y'all.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's my
audible?
internet or it's just this one round, but this is just please respect the clears.
Sure. Am I audible?
You're good.
All right, cool. All right. One sheet, 4 minutes. You'll be voting McKendree PS in this debate in the negative because the alternative has been conceded that it solves the entirety of the affirmative, and they do not get access to a permutation in this debate. This is always going to be up-layering their argumentation, especially in a world where either epistemology comes first or even if materialism comes first, because our impacts work in the same way. One, the epistemology comes first in this debate, mainly because it means that the pulse failure is inevitable asset investigation into the structures of knowledge under the 1AC. This is completely conceded coming out of the MG, which means that false fear is always going to be inevitable, which means the impacts are always going to be reified and necessarily problematic. This next argument is that we're the only way that we could solve back for the material struggles, which means we're also ahead on that part because they conceded that class consciousness is the only way to solve back for this problem, and that necessarily totalizing theory is the only way to be able to interrogate these types of issues that they highlight in the PMC. They have conceded these arguments coming out of the MG, which makes it really problematic to vote affirmative in this debate when we already solved the AF. Next, they're gonna go for triad on stopping these war scenarios. But we say that we already saw these scenarios mainly because of defense that as long as NATO doesn't collapse, that will stop Russian adventurism. But secondly, because Russia is inevitably going to fill, and they are behind on these argumentations essentially because they don't put enough ego in this argumentation coming out of the NG. But secondly, it doesn't really even matter because the alternative solves the entirety of the app. This is a drop. This is a drop coming out of the MG, which means that there's no reason to vote on the advantages in terms of the affirmative solvency on that because the alternative is already solving these things, especially in a world where we're talking about epistemology, because our entire interpretation of vanguardism is the only way to be solved back for things by in this debate round and having better strategies to be able to make the proletariat engage in class consciousness is always going to be better. Their argumentation is always going to be focused on this. The superstructure is never going to be able to actually solve for anything. This is how Marx always claims that you have to change the base to be able to solve things. This is the argumentation we get from Becca cleared up in the MO. Next argument, your permutation is always going to fail in this debate, mainly because mainly because dual power is always going to be reliant on not using the state in the first place because it tries to reifies the state's legitimacy, which will always undermine all solvency, which means they can't solve the affirmative if they do the perm. Secondly, we say that there's no permutation in this debate because every link in the debate is residual link to the affirmative. They have conceded the specificity of link 3 that says that the militarism in the United States is specifically used to try to stop socialism and things like the alternative, which means that there is no way that this is a link of omission. They have missed the specificity of this argument. There's always going to be a link to the criticism. You're going to extend both impacts in this case, mainly because there is a dual relationship between the two. It's really bad for Berkeley and impact winning here because either capitalism causes extinction by eating up all the resources. This is completely dropped coming out of the MG, which means that they have not said the resources are infinite, which means that the 2 to 3% mandatory growth of capitalism means that resources will eventually run out, meaning that extinction will be caused because climate change will finish the job, or if it doesn't cause extinction, it will collapse in the first place, which means that fascism will lock in if we don't do the alternative to try to lock in communism first. This is always going to mean that the affirmative impacts are going to be way worse in the world of fascism because of the problematic way fascism exacerbates things like war and genocide. So eventually, basically, you're looking at a world of fascism post the affirmative, or triad to stop fascism and also stop extinction because capitalism causes both things, whether it either causes extinction or it collapses and causes fascism. You need the alternative to be able to solve these things. They are way behind on this argumentation. Which means that they're just way behind on the impact weighing as well. There's no way they can actually it's really hard when the impact weighing on this level, especially since if you're extinct, there's no way to be able to solve back for any type of structural issues. They didn't read a structural impact for coming out of the MG or the PMC, which means they were always going to be ahead on the magnitude and time frame. We have the inevitability claim too, is that it goes untouched, which means that we are waiting on predictability as well as a very clear win for the negatives since the L solves the F.
1 minute starting now. I didn't catch your responses to State Crushers Your Movement. That might kind of cut out. What were they?
We extended the dual power argumentation that one, it's already worked in the past where the state didn't crush the movement. It literally ceded its power in the October Revolution, which means that your argumentation about the state crushed our movement is one, just wrong. Secondly, that we are essentially creating a new version of the state because the state is already on its road to social collapse, which is the argumentation of the state inevitable argument I make in the LSC. This means that the states can never crush our movement, mainly because if it's already on the road to social collapse, we need a new thing to supplant the government as a whole, which is what dual power inevitably is.
Okay. And what were your? I heard. What were your responses to the perm again? Kind of cut out there too.
So one specifically, I classified the totalizing theory stuff, which means you can't like do permutation because it distracts from that. But in addition, also like the links the dissets to the dissets to the perm and
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it refiles the state.
Awesome. Overview. Severance. The AF. Perm double blind. Everyone good? Everyone good? Okay. I'm assuming that's a yes. Okay. Extend across the we meet on an MG theory. We're not going for it. There's no RBIs. They have conceded no RBIs. There's a chill theory. In addition, if we meet, there's sort of no articulated BS. Cool. We're not going for it. Let's go to the bottom of the alternative. They have conceded the severance permutation. This is pretty damning. There's perm. Do the alternative. Perm. Do the alternative. Here's the sort of implication. We have severed out these sort of representations of the affirmative, which means all their links are just as the affirmative are non-responsive because we don't defend the affirmative, even if you think severance perms are kind of stupid. They fully dropped it. Here's the implication of a severance perm. One, it means these sort of voting for the alternative is you can still vote affirmative and endorse the alternative because it allows for it. And two, the assemblage building net benefit is dropped. Here's the implication of the assemblage building. One, if we're not entitled to sort of sign on to your movement after being reunified within a capitalist structures reoriented, it means nobody will sign on to your movement if everyone's affected by capitalism, like you explained, which is the terminal solvency deficit to the app, because if no one does it, nobody engages in sort of dual power, which means us signing on to the movement is a net benefit of assemblage building overall. It also means that these sort of net benefits, they also drop. So like even if they win, the risks links are just as the perm. They have not won reps or binding or rhetorical link, which means we can do we've won the debate. It's over. All right. Well, regardless, we will go back to the affirmative case, extend across the advantage one, the sort of structural violence advantage that is right now the uniqueness. The U.S. gives Azerbaijan massive amounts of aid in the status quo. There are 3 warrants. We these sort of most influential, and Russia does not fill in. They have not extended this into the MO. Even if they do, it was flipping to not give them access to it. Even if they win access to these sort of link level analysis, even if Russia does fill in, Azerbaijan will cave to international pressure going to the peace table, so they never enact violence. It also takes a time frame differential for Russia and fill in, which means we give a temporary reprieve for Armenians that are being killed in the status quo. We will do structural violence time frame laying now. One, structural violence comes first because it's invisibilized in the status quo, which means and there's always sort of risk of a high magnitude impact, like a meteor falling on the earth or nuclear war. Two is structural violence is sort of infinite internal genocides overall, and sort of leads to logical violence in the first place. Three is the time frame weighing still outweighs, even if they win their extinction. One time frame becomes more magnitude. A is because there's a psychological bias towards high magnitude impacts, but time frame is what we can resolve right now. Two is going to be the most resolvable impact overall. Even if you think a time frame arguments are flipping, they have not done any magnitude versus time frame rank, which means you should give it to the PMR. Three is going to be it's the sort of cross play, the invisible violence, also time frame controls the internal link to understanding what magnitude impacts we can resolve later on. Extend across advantage to the massively misunderstand it's going to be a massive net benefit to the permutation as well. The soft power is low right now. Their argument, NATO checks back is non-responsive. It's not a question of NATO funding. Overall, it's a question of the U.S. soft power being low right now that causes Russian adventurism. They've dropped Russia's expansing right now in places like Estonia, and the status quo extend the links that we perceptually look stronger, which pushes back Russian adventurism, which prevents a sort of Baltic war that kills billions. It's try or die in the status quo. They're expanding right now. We also perceptually force Russia to look internally that stops the expansionism overall, even if they get access to it, which solves for healthcare for millions. The future examples. Go to the alt. Extend across the permutation double bind. Perm do both. Here's the implications of the double bind. If they're not able to come to the exception, if the affirmative, they're not able to solve writ large. They make all links like this as the perm, but these sort of permutation shields the link. There's thousands of policies every second that are constantly happening. If they're not able to overcome it, it's a terminal solvency deficit too. If the state crushes your movement, here's the implication of it. If it crushes your movement, your alt can never generate uniqueness to solve the affirmative in the first place. You get words like Lenin collapsed back into state-run capitalism in Russia. Your own war and works against you, which means a Jewish getting the BPP was so crushed, which is a more recent example of the sort of vanguardism in the first place, which means you should evaluate the sort of recency overall. If they're never able to come in, you also drop that hierarchies are inevitable, even if the state is not. A state is inevitably sort of hierarchies of capitalism always created itself, which means permutation has the net benefit of maybe being able to resolve hedge and structural violence, which you do not solve for. Jay crushes your movement. Also,
Good round, y'all.
Good round.